Greetings, YouTube. Today we're taking a look at the medieval fortress, castles, forts, and walled cities of the Middle Ages by J.E. Kaufman and H.W. Kaufman, illustrated by Robert M. Yurga, who did a stellar job. And I'm going to take a look at this from the perspective of someone that is a tabletop gamer. Now, all of us have at one time or another come up with castle designs for our games. And a lot of the times when we do that, we are creating very square or very rectangular designs that are very neat and orderly and such. They just look really good, but they don't reflect the way things actually looked in the real world. A lot of the times, fortresses and walled cities and such didn't look like this, all right? Something that was probably built on a flat plane. Uh, they looked like this. Why? Because that is matching the terrain that it is built upon. Let me find a find one in here. That's a good example. That's a Moat and Bailey. Of course, I just had a really good example of that a few minutes ago, and now I can't find the bloody thing. Because this is the second time I've had to film this because my mic didn't work. So there you go. That right there is a good example of the kind of things that were designed that isn't nice and neat and tidy. It's designed to fit the piece of land it's on. Why? Because if you have a hill, that's the perfect place to put a defensive position because it gives you a good view of the territory around you, and it's going to be difficult to go after because it's up there on top of the hill. You're going to build the maximum size you can, so it's going to you're going to contour it to the shape of the geologic structure it is sitting upon. Um, Another thing that this kind of book is going to be useful, it will show you the internal structures because it goes all into details about all the different elements that castles and fortresses had, why they have them, what they did, and that will help you come up with better designs that make more sense. Not to mention much greater depth of verisimilitude because they will feel organic. When someone asks you a question because they know something about them or they ask a logical question, even if they didn't, you will have an answer because you have a reference book like this that tells you how did they get rid of human waste. That may pop up. You have a solution now. You know that this is how they handle human waste. Okay? That may mean there's an interest that wasn't well defended, not necessarily when you want to go through, but there maybe have no options, that kind of thing. Um, the reason I bring this up is because a lot of the times that the designs that we come up with, and I'm guilty of this, some of the things that I drew back in my early days are horrendous. I should see if I could find those illustrations somewhere. I think I still have them just so I can embarrass myself in front of you. Is because if you don't know how something works, you don't know how to design something that emulates that thing. An example I can give you is a mall floor plan I once saw for a post-apocalyptic adventure. And it was a nicely done module, good place to have an adventure. And even though I enjoyed the content, there was something about it that was bugging me. And then I was at work and it clicked that the person that had drawn the floor plan did not know that there's an entire infrastructure to a mall that you cannot see from the public facing sections of the mall. Because if you have a mall, most of those stores don't open onto the street. Some do, but most don't. Some of them open onto a back hallway, and the hallway may be on that wall that's the outside. Or it could just mean that on the other side of that hallway is the back portions of another set of stores. So you have two stores like this. Their back doors face the same hallway, which lets them get stock in and garbage out. You get the point. But if you don't know that that structure is there, you're not going to design your floor plan for your module with that intact. And the person that did this module didn't know that. And I think that lost something because it lacked that realistic world aspect that would have allowed player characters to do things that the player characters in this module couldn't do because there was no back hallways. There were no back entrances. There's no cargo docks. There was no areas for like the maintenance teams to go. There was no break rooms for the crews, the people that took care of the place. I know. I used to work at a mall. I know what all these things look like. I've been in them. Okay. But that gave me, I had an insight into that the author of that adventure didn't, because they'd never worked in a mall. By that same measure, if you don't have this kind of a reference, you're not going to know all the details. So I don't expect everyone to become a scholar. You don't have to. You get a book like this, and this is going to just give your overall adventure a little bit more depth. That's going to really make it shine as opposed to some of the more flat, canned material that you may find in an adventure off the shelf. You'll be able to come up with something, and you can just take the maps that are in here. Look, because let's be honest, how many people in the real world who are tabletop gamers would be able to look at a floor plan and say, "Hey, I know that castle." Not very likely. Okay, there are some people out there. Well, I'm not one of them. We all know them, don't we? If you're a tabletop gamer, you know someone like that. Um, but most of us could use a book like this, get a really good feel for what it's supposed to look like, add that extra element, and give the adventure a greater depth. Not to mention, save yourself some trouble if you just want to open this up and use the floor plan as is. No work whatsoever. Boom, you're done. And the players are going to be like, oh, that's a really good design you came up with. You're like, yes. Yes, it was a really good design that I came up with. um, because, if someone attributes wisdom to you that you don't necessarily possess, don't correct them. Remember that. Somebody thinks you're smarter than you really are. Don't tell them that you aren't. So yeah, this is a book that I think everybody should have, even if you aren't a GM, because I got to tell you, even if I'd never heard of the concept of tabletop role-playing games, I would still own a book like this because I think it's really damn cool. So get yourself something like this, add a bit more depth, and if nothing else, it's just really cool to look at these floor plans because they're just spiffy.